Thank you. Yeah, that one's off. I apologize for the delay. We had some very important stuff to handle in executive session, and I appreciate your patience waiting for us. So at this time, may I have a motion to return to open session, please?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. We're now back in regular session. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no additions or modifications to the agenda, so may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as stated?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Thank you. That brings us to Pride.
Yes, and I'm going to turn it over to Garrett first, so thanks.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to start off with mentioning that the musical comedy Murders of 1964, which is a play put on by our theater department, was really spectacular. I think that there was a full crowd on both nights of the production. And so hats off to them for doing another spectacular show, and they'll have a musical. This one was a play. They'll have a musical coming up in the spring that I encourage everyone to go and watch. On the sports side, we had the boys cross-country team came in second at the Nike Cross Regionals Invitational. The boys and girls basketball teams have both kicked off their seasons, which both teams are very young, so there's a lot of potential in them in the coming games. Is that for student government, we had a can drive for the Claudio Cares Foundation that we raised almost 1,000 cans in, which we're really excited about, which well surpassed our goal. So that was really exciting. And we had a teacher talent show hosted by our senior class, which we sold out the show for. We had a packed auditorium, and I think everyone really, really enjoyed it. Which the number of people that came to this one was significantly more than that came to our last year's teacher talent show, so it shows that people really are enjoying it quite a bit. We also recently had a craft fair in our gymnasium, and over 60 local arts and crafts vendors came and sold their wares at it. And throughout the day, we had hundreds and hundreds of customers come and shop at all these local vendors, which is really exciting. It raised a bunch of money for student government, and it also allowed many of our local people to shop local.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm just going to add to that. I was at the Haviland concert last night. It was well done. It's the first one of the season, and more to follow. And I encourage anybody that has an interest in music to see the number 2 and number 3, which are coming up next week. Also, the play, by the way, 1940 there, was really a lot of fun. It featured a blackout in part of the stage during the thing, and guess what? We had a power failure right when it was supposed to have a blackout, and the actors and actresses on the stage were so cool. I heard, "What do we do?" "Keep going." "Okay." And then finally the lights came on, but they couldn't get the set and everything going. So the kid that played the artsy guy came out to the stage and had a dialogue with people to fill in time. It was really cool. Anyway, that's just some of what you get to see when you go to productions up at the high school. So, does anybody else have any pride, by the way?
I just had one, and that was Project Fala. Each year we participate in Project Fala. It's a collaboration with the Town of Hyde Park Historical Society. They organize the cookie collection, and we organize or Debbie organizes the collection of cards and decorations and snowflakes and all kinds of things that are made by our students, and all of the goods are packed up and delivered to our adopted ship, the USS Roosevelt. So this year, over 500 items were created by students in the middle and elementary schools, which included notes, cards, Christmas trees, snowmen, ornaments, snowflakes, mittens, Christmas lights, and candy canes. So again, Ralph Osterhout from the American Legion, along with the Hyde Park Historical Society, collaborate to make Project Fala happen every year. We will eventually receive photographs from the ship of the servicemen and women opening all of their packages. So I'd like to thank Debbie and Barbara Marine, our Director of Fine and Performing Arts, who coordinate our end of this initiative.
There was coverage in today's Poughkeepsie Journal on it.
Nice photograph of Patsy Costello, Ralph Osterhout, and there was a third person in the picture. I can't.
Roberta.
Oh, Roberta, yeah.
Is any other?
We have our formal pride for tonight, if everybody else is finished. From time to time, we take a pause to put something actually written on the agenda, something that raises to the level where we really feel that we want to recognize the student involvement in a particular activity and get them to come here and be publicly recognized for their involvement. So I'm going to turn it over to Aviva, because tonight's official pride is for the Marathon Project. So Aviva, take it away.
Thank you. The Marathon Project, sponsored by the Council on Addiction Prevention and Education of Dutchess County, is a distance running program that pairs adult mentors with youth. This is an after-school training program that aims to reduce risk factors for young people, such as childhood obesity, gang involvement, school dropout, and substance abuse. The Marathon Project provides opportunities for students to set and achieve goals, explore avenues for character development, improve health, and build positive student and adult relationships through mentoring. Though they're going to be acknowledged in a moment, I do want to have a special thank you to the adult mentors in our school, Mandy LaLuna, Rebecca Moore, Regina Hernandez, and Erin Barrios. And also, Nicole Alger is the coordinator from CAPE, which is the council, and she will be able to answer any questions that the board may have when she's up at the podium.
And we do have certificates for both the adults and the
Yes.
students, so. And I'll let you do that with Aviva. So, are we ready to call them up?
I think we are. They're
Yes?
out here.
Come on up. And are they they're going to present a little? No, okay.
Okay.
You mean you're not going to speak at the microphone? You should let us know when you're out there sometime. sometime maybe we'll come and run alongside of you.
You can run it.
Okay. Just gotta shoot me an email. So I didn't see Aaron Berrios, but we would like to acknowledge Aaron Berrios, the guidance counselor. Regina Hernandez. Mandy LaLuna.
Thank you.
Rebecca Moore. Thank you so much. We can't do it without the adults, so we want to thank them. Okay, and I hope I get all your names right or close. And if you can say my name, then we're even. It's Greer Rychek, just, I don't mean to frighten you. Okay, Wafa Ahmed. Okay. Yeah. Janine Bonnick. Not everybody could make it. Catherine Coville. Congratulations. And thank you for participating. And share it with your friends and get more and more people to come into this. Vanessa Moyer.
They must know we have a test day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Najia Villa. Did I say it right? Yes.
Thank you.
Garrett Anderson?
Not here.
Not here. Daniel O'Sullivan?
Not here.
Ryan Paget? Cody Petchko? Tyler Schmidt? Trevor Satansky? All right. Well, keep up the running, keep up your involvement in this very worthy endeavor. And like I said, you guys are really, it's not the first year, but this is the first time we've taken the time to publicly recognize you, give you a certificate. And we just ask that you share this with your friends and anybody else that, you know, you think would want to join you. And I just want to thank the adults and definitely thank the kids for participating. It's definitely a worthwhile project. So.
This is the first year that the middle school has joined us. The high school, we've been doing this now for 3 years.
Okay. So am I missing a certificate?
No, I'm just the coordinator for the program.
Okay. You're the, okay. You're the,
I may look like a student.
okay.
You get to take the test. All right.
Well, thank you very much for coming. And it's a nice opportunity to publicly recognize this program.
Thank you very much.
Good thing we have no OSHA safety people.
I know.
know.
Don't tell Elliot.
Okay, you get to keep talking.
Oh, boy. I don't have much to say as far as the superintendent's report, other than what's formally on the agenda. I did want to say that we had the concession stand meeting, and I'm still working on putting my notes together. Part of what we are looking at and have decided, and we'll try to get a notice out before the winter break, is that the plea from the current junior class to be grandfathered in to have the football games next year will be granted. And then as far as moving forward, we're looking at possibly providing some equity, but as I said, we're still putting together the notes. We'll get the word out there to the junior class as soon as possible, and once we have it put together, I'll formally put it on the agenda so that I have my notes in front of me and can bullet point the items that we're going to follow moving forward. But it was a very healthy dialogue with a lot of input, and hopefully we'll get it right moving forward. It is a work in progress.
Rear, quick question on that was, I mean, do you feel like you have a good cross-section of people in attendance for that meeting? And was there anybody that you thought might have wanted to be there but wasn't able to?
There were a couple of booster groups that were not directly affected, that were mentioned to be invited, and we kept the invitation to the affected booster groups, but some of the people showed up anyway.
Okay.
So I will say that some of the people that expressed an interest that didn't initially get invited came anyway, and that wasn't a problem. And then there were some interesting substitutes, but, you know.
My concern is just making sure that it was a good collective agreement, that, you know, we're not going to keep revisiting this over and over and over again, that, you know, we've got, you know, not that it's cast in stone, but just that there's good input, you know, everybody had the opportunity.
I think there was a good cross-section of input. Not everybody on the invite list showed up, and some people who weren't on the invite list showed up. I think it was a good cross-section. We can, you know, send it out there too while it's still in draft, and
Great.
you know, it goes.
Good. But certainly it will
We
be...
have time. We're not going to use the concession stand till the spring, so.
It will be reviewed as needed, though.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That brings us to
Lisa.
the highlight of the night. Is that
The headline.
North Park
Let me see,
Elementary presentation?
got some support from PTA and staff, and it's good to see the North Park community coming out. Thank you.
First, I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of the North Park community to our building tonight. I'm so glad to have you here. If you haven't had a chance to do so before you leave, you might want to just take a peek in the gym. We did get a beautiful paint job this summer, and everything is light and bright and beautiful. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look, it's a nice thing. Okay, so we'll just jump right in. We'll start with the data conversation. The last 3 years in math on the state assessments for grades 3, 4, and 5, we have been able to see slow but steady improvement. From 3 years ago, where only 17% of our students passed the state assessments in math, we're at 31% overall this year if you combine the 3 grade levels. And so we can take some encouragement from that. I do believe that we can attribute it to the work that we've done over the last 3 years to develop, to utilize the curriculum that's been provided. As students become more and more familiar from one year to the next, the implementation is going more and more smoothly. We've got a huge amount of resources available to us, and so we've been able to see some growth. I'd like to be able to say the same thing about ELA, but we've been pretty stagnant at ELA and over the last 3 years. I had a conversation earlier about, you know, what do the patterns look like? What does it look like as we are moving from one year to the next, from one grade level to the next, the cohort data from a group of students from 3rd to 4th to 5th. And unfortunately, we don't really see a solid pattern at this point. There's a lot of ups and downs. It's hard to compare, and if we look back at the math, I could say it looks good, so you like to talk about that, but I don't know that we can even really rely heavily on the data from the math, because each year it's a little bit different. The test is a little bit different. The student participation has varied dramatically over the last few years, so it's difficult to take an assessment that is so involved and so lengthy and takes so much of our time and feel like we're getting really good, solid data out of it. That's been a challenge so far. You know, hopefully there'll be changes coming.
Be shorter this year.
In the wind that will help us get more value out of these assessments. So that's, you know, kind of pretty much what I said. We did do a pretty extensive item analysis this year with the results that came back both in math and ELA. We started focusing more heavily on the ELA. We've been able to look at the item analysis of the not so much the questions that were released, but what was released was data around how students did on the item and what that item was testing. So we didn't see the question, but we did get to know what the item was testing. And the data was provided to us as how we do as a building compared to the district average, compared to the county average and the regional average. So the way we analyzed that data was to look at what were our relative strengths and our relative weaknesses compared to each of those three other groups. It's hard to look at an overall data piece and say, we had 30% of our kids do well on this question. Out of context, that doesn't mean a whole lot. In context, we look at, was 30% high or low compared to the other buildings in the district, to the other districts in the county and in the region. In doing that, one of the things that we saw was that our students have a relative strength in vocabulary development, and that was exciting for us to see because it's been a goal for us for the last 3 years. So for us to actually see that that's one of our relative strengths was good for us to know. In terms of our next steps.
Can I just ask a question about data?
Certainly.
It just occurred to me. Since we're changing testing companies, is all this data worthless now?
That's a really good question, and I did have the opportunity this week to listen to the commissioner speak. The Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Elia, was at Ulster BOCES 3 days ago.
Right.
And one of the questions that she addressed was what changes are coming, or hopefully coming, with the assessments. This year, we will still be using the test that was created by Pearson, which is the company that's outgoing now. Hopefully with some modifications to the length, and the questions have been reviewed by teachers, and they've gotten feedback about the questions and the passages. And in the future, we're moving in the direction of assessments that are being done digitally on computers. So it will it can't be anything other than different. With that being said, so I think we will be back to starting with gathering baseline data again. The good news is, separate from the state assessments, is we have a lot of other data sources that we're using to track our progress. And our F&P results, our Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessments that assess the kids' reading levels that we gather over the years. We've now had several years of data. It's the same test every year. It's the same pool of students that are taking the test. So we're starting to get some good data out of that and seeing some positive trends there. So we'll continue to use the data that we have available to us until there's a steady flow of information coming from the state. So some of the things that we're doing differently this year, at this time last year, we were struggling, I think, as a building, and I don't think we were alone, in trying to implement a lot of new curriculum pieces. We were taking on a new writing program. We were taking on some new ELA domains for the K2 kids, and it was a struggle because there was a lot of information coming down all at once. We made some modifications to what teachers are expected to do with kids for this year, and in doing so, I'm seeing that we have a more cohesive program. It's year 2 with some of these materials, so teachers are more comfortable with what they began with last year and are continuing this year. So I do see a better coordination of literacy activities across the different areas of literacy. We started last year with a consulting company called Generation Ready, who have provided. Last year we had a consultant that came in and worked with all of our teachers K-5, beginning to look at planning in the area of writing. This year that's been expanded. We have a consultant who's here for 17 days to work with teachers in grades K through 2. 6 days for grades 3 through 5, and we're already seeing some really positive changes happening in the classroom with the influence of our consultants. We're also continuing our data teamwork. As I mentioned earlier, we did that item analysis, not only of the state assessment work, but also looking at our trends with our F&P data, our reading data, and each grade level identified a standard, what we're calling a power standard. So a standard that we feel most successfully addresses our areas of weakness, that each teacher at the grade level will be focusing heavily on that standard. And then as a grade level, they're meeting regularly. We're continuing to meet on those early release days and other opportunities to do some data work, to look at creating common assessments that we'll use to monitor kids' progress towards that particular standard, and also what interventions, what teaching strategies we will use. And it may not be the same in each room. It may be 2 teachers will try this and 2 teachers will try this, and we'll look at where it's most effective, but really trying to do it based on a collaborative process. This year, our BLT plan is focusing on student engagement.
Building leadership team.
Thank you. Our building leadership team, which is made up of parents and staff and myself. A couple of years ago, we got our BLT up off the ground and running successfully. We have a kind of a new crop this year of members on the BLT. At the end of last year, we did a survey of our students in grades 2 through 5 that was specifically around how they feel about school. What are the things that make them want to come to school? We had an opportunity for kids to write in those responses, and one of the responses that showed up 4 or 5 times to that question was my mother. We were looking for what motivates them to come to school, but also the things that they struggle with, like what are the things that make them not want to come to school. And what we learned from that, which is not surprising, is that the things that kids get most excited about are the things that they can get really involved in, things that are hands-on, things that are exciting and fun. So we are creating our plan this year is really taking into consideration ways for kids to feel like they belong and they want to be here at school. So, for example, last year, on one occasion, we had the older grades and the younger grades matched as partners, and we did a reading buddies where the older kids came and read to the younger kids, and the younger kids had books to read to the older kids. It was really successful. So this year, starting next month, we're doing a drop everything and read on a monthly basis, matching the same kids each time so that they begin to develop those relationships. We're also talking about a postal system where kids can start to write to each other, send letters to each other, and have some of the older kids take responsibility for delivering that mail. So just trying to continue to strengthen those relationships and connections. We also this year continued our curriculum night with parents. This year we focused specifically on how parents can help their kids with math. We've been hearing that over and over again that parents are not quite sure how to help their kids with their homework when they get home at night, and a lot of the vocabulary is different and the approach is different. So we had a great night. We had teachers came in at each grade level. Parents came in and got to attend classes as if they were students in grades K through 5. And then there was an opportunity for questions and answers about the program, the curriculum at that point. So that also was really quite successful this year. We were happy about that. We do plan to do the survey again in the spring of our students so that we can see if we are making progress in that area. I've talked for years about our character education program. We use something called Healthy Highways that addresses not just character education, but nutrition education and fitness education as well. The two things that are new this year, the Fuel Up to Play 60 ambassadors began last year, but we're starting earlier and getting more deeply involved this year. This is students that represent each class from grades 3, 4, and 5. They meet once a month in the morning before school, and they've created a number of projects that is geared to help improve the nutrition and fitness of our students. So this Friday, tomorrow, we are having a dance fitness activity where each classroom teacher has chosen from a list of possibilities some kind of a dance event that they will do in their classrooms at a time that's most convenient for the teachers. And the ambassadors in grades 3, 4, and 5 are taking a leadership role in choosing that activity and leading their class through that activity. Something else that we're doing right now, actually, is a kindness project. I've challenged each classroom to come up with something that will help spread kindness in our community. So the kids have come up with a variety of things, a huge variety of things, everything from putting together cookie packages to send down to the soup kitchen so that they, each person who comes in for a meal gets a little cookie package for dessert. Is one of the activities. We've had first graders writing thank you letters to our custodians and kitchen staff and people who don't often get a whole lot of recognition. But probably our most exciting project is our Heifer International project, Ms. Keeling's class, who's in the back row there, developed, which was it's an organization that provides livestock to families in need. And the original goal was, the name of the project was Change for Change, and it was about kids gathering and bringing in change from home. And the students set a goal for $75. They were hoping to raise that much money. And we don't have the amount yet because tomorrow is the last day, and we're kind of waiting for the big finale to find out. But it's very clear from what we've collected, what the students have collected, that will far surpass their $75 goal. So we're very excited about students making a choice to reach out even beyond our community. These are some of the activities that are unique to North Park. We've been able to continue promising pals from Hyde Park Elementary. That was something that came over with our families, which has been a big success. Family Fitness Night is an opportunity for families to come together and participate in health and fitness-related activities. I know I talk about the winter workshops. I'm going to just mention something now that I'm particularly excited about. It's in 2 weeks. It's on the 23rd of December. You're all welcome to come at any point in the day if you'd like to drop in. Our students have the opportunity to participate, and this year it'll be 31 different workshop choices. They get to choose 4 of those workshops throughout the day. But what I'm really excited about is this is the first year that we have graduates from FDR who were originally North Park students who are home from college who have asked to come and help with the workshops. So, that to me says that's something that was so important enough to them that they're excited to come back and do that with us. So I'm happy about that. Our circus project. Pictures, you bet. Yeah. You bet. Our circus project, something that the PTA has done an amazing job to do fundraising for us so that we can take on this experience. We have 2 members of a circus company that come and spend a week with us. It's a artists in residency program. All of the students get to have an opportunity to participate with the circus performers in learning circus acts. But it's our 5th graders who actually spend all week learning, persevering, taking risks, and at the end of the week put on a circus for everybody. They do it during the day for the students and in the evening. And this year I've been working with Dr. Amy McCardle-Rosenberg on hopefully procuring, I didn't get a chance to tell you this, the high school gymnasium for our final performance so that everybody can come. Usually in our gym we can only house the parents of the 5th graders who are putting on the circus, but hopefully we're going to be able to use the high school gymnasium so that we can bring everybody that wants to come. March 11th if you'd like to join us. It's amazing to see what kids learn in a week. They walk on stilts, they juggle, they do all kinds of things. We have tons of PTA events, so many things that I can't begin to list them all. It's a really active PTA here, and I don't know what we do without them. In fact, there are snacks on the back table if you are so inclined, thanks to the PTA. And in terms of parent and community involvement, in addition to the PTA activities which are listed up there, the numerous evening activities, our Read Across America program, pre-K program, which is kids that are coming to school in September as kindergartners get to come in May for 4 weeks in a row just to begin to get to know the building a little bit, participate in, they go to the library, they get to have a snack through the cafeteria. They provide grade level grants. Each grade level gets an amount of money that they can use to enhance what their program looks like right now. And then, again, the enrichment events that take place. We have a number of parents that volunteer in our library to help keep our library going. And we've been able to do some nice resource sharing, too. In fact, this evening, the Boy Scouts are asked to use our Chromebooks for a badge that they're working on, so we've been able to do that. And we've also been able to have the Reading Adventures program, which is another program that started at Hyde Park Elementary through the St. James Methodist Church. They have, excuse me? Episcopal Church, I'm sorry. Okay. the Episcopal Church, and they have volunteers who come on Thursday afternoons to this building, and students who may not have developed the love of reading yet or get to read one-on-one with an adult volunteer. We actually have a volunteer that's a former parent from this building, and her son, who's a current high school student, volunteer as well. So that's been really nice to have that be available. I think that's it. So thank you so much. Anybody have any questions? I think I went over 10 minutes, I'm sorry. I tried to talk fast.
That was a lot of good stuff.
Okay,
So, all
thanks.
right, thank you very much.
I just want to add, only because it's so fresh in my mind, but I did attend Lisa's faculty meeting yesterday, and it was amazing. It was truly an instructional collaboration with positive culture. Tracy, you weren't there, but somebody delivered a message. We heard about the BLT, the PTA, the teacher sharing, everything from the Heifer Initiative to the PD that teachers are offering. It was just the most relaxed, sharing, all academic focus, but in a, in a way that was really, how can we do things that are really great for kids and engage them in the process? And I told Lisa that after I walked out of her faculty meeting, I was just like, wow, this was exactly what a faculty meeting should look like. And I'm still kind of riding high. It was just, it was great to be there, and it was really a testament to your leadership, but also how the staff interacts with each other in a real meaningful, collaborative way. So it was impressive.
Thank you, I appreciate that, because we do work towards that, and that's what we pride ourselves on, is our ability to work together positively for kids. So thank you for noticing that.
Good.
Okay. Moving on. New course proposal for Project Lead the Way. Oh, I did it again. We don't. Go ahead. We don't need no stinking technology. Come on.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just have a few updates to share with you guys this evening. As far as the technology update, I was invited here to provide some updates about the technology plan. So we'll jump right into it. We have actually had an active technology committee for a number of years, although it's kind of changed in the membership from a subcommittee with board members to this year we've got representation across the school district. We even have a parent member. We still need to, I think, look from the student member side of things, but at this time, at least we've added a lot to our representation. But the charges for this year, and one of the board goals is to review our technology policy. So you'll see that clearly up here. But we have two bigger goals: to make it through identifying how we're going to use the Smart Schools Bond Investment Act funding, and to look at preparing the district for a one-to-one initiative. And that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at starting at the middle school level. So as we go through this process, I'll talk a little bit more in a future slide, but we're adapting to identify what we need to change as a school district to be ready to implement a one-to-one device initiative across the school district and support it in a meaningful way while protecting our investment, of course. So part of the requirements to get the Smart Schools Bond Act funding, and I think I've talked to you guys about this before, is actually that we had to have a technology plan. Now, the state actually refers to this as a technology plan survey at this time. We went through a very active process last year to create a document to submit to state ed. Actually went through, as you can see up here, we had reviewers at Dutchess Boces, Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center, and New York State Education who took a look at the document that we submitted. It's required to be updated yearly, so it started this year. Next June, we're going to have to do another update, and following to make sure that we are in alignment. Our goals, as we looked at them, we aligned them with the current school district initiatives, so the things that we felt are areas that we are working towards. And just to the end note, which I've already said, is that it's required for participation to be able to get the funding. So I've put a lot of information on this next page, but there's a lot of good stuff here. Our district is eligible for over $2.6 million for the Smart Schools Bond Act. But to be able to go through that process, we actually have to go through this lengthy process, of which the technology plan survey is one component. We actually have, as part of that technology committee, meets parts of that. We're currently in the process of creating an investment plan to identify how to spend those funds, and there's certain stipulations along that direction. And you'll see actually on the right-hand side here the categories that we're actually allowed to consider, which is install high broadband or Wi-Fi, acquire learning technology equipment, installing or building pre-K classrooms, or replacing existing structures, or installing high-tech security features. So there are other things that we can't use them for, which is kind of interesting too. They can't be used for professional development. They cannot be used for software, or even technical support. So it's more about the items, so the things that we want to purchase. So as we've been working as a technology committee, where we've made it so far is looking at the criteria, and we've started to go into the design of where we're going with the spending. Oops, sorry about that. So, but that's the overview of the plan as where we've made it so far. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we've got a great group that's working through it. Some of the members of the board here are on that group as well. And that's where we're going to go next. So,
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Boris.
thank you.
All right. Now, can we have the Parazik lead the way? Gee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening.
Cora.
Thank you, Greer. Appreciate it.
It's feeling a little quiet here tonight.
Yeah, thanks. I'm here first to speak about Project Lead the Way and to seek the board's approval for 2 additional courses. And you may recall that we started talking about this about 1.5 years ago, and this year, for the first time, have our first course. And it's currently in the technology department. It's the Introduction to Engineering course. And we've been very successful so far, both recruiting students from the middle school. Most of our students in the program are freshmen, although there's a handful of upperclassmen. And when we made the commitment to Project Lead the Way, it was a commitment of multiple years. So in order to provide Project Lead the Way courses, we have to commit to at least 3 years. And with the board's support, we did that last year. So the first course that I'm going to speak about is along the lines of the engineering strand. It's the second course in that strand, and it's called Principles of Engineering, and the board has a copy of the course outline in the packet, but I'll just share a little bit about what might be part of the curriculum when students enter this second course. The goal of the first unit is to introduce students to mechanisms, energy sources, and alternative energy applications. Students gain an understanding of mechanisms through the application of theory-based calculations accompanied by lab experimentation. So you'll remember that Project Lead the Way relies very heavily on the role of a teacher as facilitator as opposed to the owner of content. The work is all problem-based, and students are presented with an issue or a complex problem that they need to solve. So a lot of the foundational work is around that. The units in this particular course are around energy and power, materials and structures, control systems, and statistics and kinematics. I did not take that in high school or college, so I can't provide a huge amount of detail there. But some of you will know exactly what that is.
That's true, too.
So, for example, at the start of the course, one of the things that students in this course will do is interview a professional to learn more about that individual's career path and roles in their current position. The interview will be the first portion of a course-long career report. So it's very much an emphasis on thinking about the future. In this course, when students say, why do I have to learn this? The answer is readily available, readily accessible, and directly connected to every activity that students are asked to engage in. So let me just also share a little bit about some of the other units. The second one is materials and structures. And in this one, students begin by learning about beam deflection and then the forces on truss structures. They learn about material properties, which leads them to properly select a material for a given task. So when they're presented with a problem, part of the foundational work is thinking about what things do I need to gather in order to respond to this problem in an appropriate way. The primary way of studying materials in this unit is through destructive and non-destructive material testing on various materials. It sounds like things blowing up, so it sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. And in the third unit, students learn to control mechanical systems by recognizing computer outputs and gaining an understanding of how to write code, which is all the rage right now, right? We've just recently had the Hour of Code national activity that our president participated in. They additionally experiment with various input devices and learn how to adapt computer code to control computer outputs. So that's the theme of this particular course. And just as a reminder, within all of the strands in Project Lead the Way, we begin with a foundation course, and there's typically either 1 or 2 required courses at the start of a strand, and then we develop into a system where we have some choice. So Principles of Engineering is the second required course. And from there, when we move into years 3 and 4, we'll make some decisions about which courses to offer. And just to give you a sense of what those choices are, they include aerospace engineering, civil engineering and architecture, computer integrated manufacturing, computer science and software engineering, digital electronics, and environmental sustainability. We do have an advisory committee for Project Lead the Way that includes teachers, parents, administrators, and right now, 1 student. We're seeking additional students. And that group will take a look at all of these curriculum over the course of the next year or so and provide input on which of those might be the next best choice for us in the engineering strand. You have the information on the financial requirements that go along with this course. So before I move to the next one, I'd ask if you have any questions about the engineering strand.
A lot of the topics that you mentioned in the course descriptions were familiar to me from my college engineering days.
Okay.
So one question I have is how much technical education is a prereq for those courses?
The only prerequisite for the principles course is the intro course that the students are currently in. So good point to make. I should say that only students who are in that intro course now, would be eligible for the principles course.
So for example, it doesn't sound like they would be doing physics work for the statics and the dynamics subsections of that course.
Not necessarily, although I will say that it's also a requirement that students in a Project Lead the Way course be concurrently enrolled in either a math or science course. So part of our work is looking at the alignment between those two.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get a feel for how much hands-on work there is here, or whether it's more general introduction to the ideas.
Yeah, my understanding, both from attending the conference and working with the teachers, is that with each course it becomes more and more hands-on. So this year is probably the year where they would do the least amount of that, and with each progression, it gets more and more involved. And in fact, in year 4, it's entirely student-driven. Students create their own problem, design how they're going to address that problem, and all of it is completely student-driven.
Okay, thank you.
Cora, do all of these classes have the same requirements as the first one, which is you have to score at least 85 on the
Yes,
test?
yes. In order to be eligible to take the course at the end of the year, students need to have an 85% average.
And have we resolved the cost yet?
There is a cost associated with the credit.
That's the cost to the parents or to the district?
Well, that's a district choice. There is a cost for students to earn that credit, and it is about $250, $280. So that would be a choice. Most districts do not pay for that. Students seeking that credit pay for it in much the way they do some of our other bridge programs. The exception in Hyde Park is all of our courses that are associated with Dutchess Community College. In those cases, those are tuition-free. But for our Marist courses and the way our design currently rests for Project Lead the Way, that would be a parent responsibility. The board could certainly consider including that in the cost of the courses if you so
No,
choose.
I'm not advocating that we pay for it, although it's not a bad idea, if we have the money. I just want to make sure people know that going into these classes.
Right.
That A, if you don't perform, you can't even take the final test.
Yep.
You have to have at least an 85 average. And B, the test costs money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the result is you get a credit, right? A college credit.
3 credits for each course.
Three credits.
From,
Which
From
is
RIT.
cheap. For a college credit, that's very cheap.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
I
it
just-
is. That's
I just
true.
want, I mean, we have a large
Yeah.
amount of free and reduced lunch,
Yeah. Yeah.
families in the district who certainly have children qualified to take these classes, but might not be able to
Yeah,
foot the bill for it.
yeah.
And it would
Yeah.
be a shame if they did not take them solely because they couldn't afford it.
Yeah. And I have reached out, because that question has come up again recently, I've reached out to other districts and to our contacts at the Project Lead the Way, main site, to ask how people manage that. And I'm starting to get responses. In some cases where districts have something set up for students in AP classes that struggle to pay for that, there is scholarship available, so people manage it in different ways. But there are also many that don't, and that it's a parent responsibility.
Okay, one other comment that I'll just slip in here, because the first course is taken by ninth graders. So they have the, disruption of moving from the middle school to the high school and going through a new routine and new classes. They also have in these courses a new way to learn, because they're online and they expected to be college-ready students, and many of them are not. And I was wondering if anybody's thought of, once that students are identified in 8th grade, if there's some kind of work that we can do with them to prepare them for this rather unique change. Because
funny you should mention that.
Yes, I love that you said that, so
they're
let
asked,
me
because there
tell
has to
you
be
something about
independent.
that.
There has to be independent learners.
They
And they've just
are.
come from an environment where everybody's trying to help them.
Right.
And having talked to some parents that are currently have kids in this class,
Yeah.
even the best of students, ninth graders, are struggling with that new format.
Right, good. I'm so glad you opened that door, because I have several things that I can
Okay.
share about that. One is that Project Lead the Way is now a K-12 program. And there are districts across the state and across the country that have begun their Project Lead the Way journey in kindergarten. So we have local neighbors who have done that as well. We were actually scheduled for a visit to Rhinebeck on Monday. However, they've asked that we move that to after the holidays. So we have a team from the district that will be visiting Rhinebeck to see what it looks like, kindergarten all the way through to their high school program. The kindergarten or the elementary program is interesting in that it's 10 modules. So it would not necessarily replace our entire science curriculum. And our teachers and students are quite enamored with Science 21. So I'm not prepared yet to say that we would abolish one in favor of the other. But the point is, the earlier we begin, the more well-prepared students will be when they enter the high school. I think there's perhaps a greater likelihood that we would step back into the middle school before really looking at the elementary, because there is already a close alignment to what we do in the technology department at the middle school, and that shift would be easier, and it would be certainly a great service to the kids to start that sooner. Okay. On a related note, though, I'll just share with you that at our last technology department meeting, we were looking at failures and passing rates for the first quarter. And we were very struck by the fact that a greater percentage of freshmen are passing than are the upperclassmen. There was a larger percentage of upperclassmen who were not passing than there were among the freshmen. We can guess, about that, and I don't know the root cause of that, but it was data that was a little surprising to us. So we're also keeping a close eye on that. I'm going to shift.
Yeah.
We, for a time, were very excited, myself included, about the notion of bringing in the next strand, which was the biomedical science program. And after really taking a look at a number of issues, including what the sequence of courses would be at the high school and the fact that students are still required to take both life science and physical science. Long story short, we're not ready for biomed as much as we love it, and I think we have a large number of students that would be really excited about that. So wanting to do it well rather than fast, we've put biomed aside, and instead I'm here tonight seeking approval for the first course that would be part of the computer science strand. As you know, we have computer science courses in our business department, and at least one of them very much mimics the Project Lead the Way course, although the Project Lead the Way course is certainly more rigorous. So the recommendation for now is that we bring the first course in next year, and in the same way that the engineering strand has multiple courses, the computer science program would as well. So if we were to go in that direction, the Introduction to Computer Science course, which is the one I shared with you, would be our first course. And going back to Doug's comment about the background that students may or may not be bringing in as freshmen, this course is designed for students with little to no programming background. And so it's a choice. In the computer science strand, you can choose this course or another. And for districts that did not have Project Lead the Way at the middle level, this was the recommendation. And then from there, the courses include computer science and software engineering, computer science applications, and then choices of simulation and modeling, artificial intelligence, I like that title, and cybersecurity. So that would be a commitment, again, to at least a 3-year sequence for students that were most interested in computer science. And we were happy to have Maggie Schimmelfinnig with us at the last technology department meeting. It would be a course that she would teach. She meets the qualifications already. She would go through the training at RIT this summer in order to prepare for that. So our recommendation is that we build on what we have. It's also a more fiscally reasonable next step to take within the program. So questions about that one?
Would that be in addition to the existing programming classes? Or would it replace something?
I think it remains to be seen. It would be a replacement of the existing computer apps course. It's most similar to that. And then from there, we would have the same conversation that we're having within the technology department. We have Project Lead the Way courses, and we have other courses that draw other students who are interested in other things. Given time and constraints and money and resources, we may at some point need to make a decision about how many sections of Project Lead the Way we offer, how many sections of other things we offer, how do we balance that? But this particular course would only be a replacement of the current computer intro course.
So let me ask a clarifying question. Is it the case that you can't, that Project Lead the Way classes require students to be enrolled in Project Lead the Way? To put it a different way, if it's a Project Lead the Way class, can the general student body enroll?
Oh, meaning might a student want to take the course but not be interested in the credit?
That's right.
Yes, yes. And we will have students, based on our last meeting, we will have students who do well in the course, but either don't keep the 85 average because they're not concerned about that, or keep it but still choose not to take the test.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm not sure I heard exactly. If we replace that class, that means that people who formerly had no interest in being an engineer but thought they might like to learn a little bit about computer programming, were able to do that. If
Yep.
we replace it with Project Lead the Way, then they can't.
No, they can still come and take the course. They can come, take the course, work the way they would in any other course, and then choose not to take the assessment at the end that would result in the college credit. I suppose our comparable way of thinking about it would be auditing, only they wouldn't be auditing. They'd still get credit. They'd still get their high school credit in technology or in computer science. They'd still earn grades. They just could choose not to take the RIT test and seek college credit at the end.
So there are two different classes. I mean, if you are required to be in Project Lead the Way in order to take the class, and you're not in Project Lead the Way,
No,
how can you take the class?
This is the introductory course. There is no prerequisite for this course.
There's no
Okay.
requirement that you're,
All right, so I can take Principles of Engineering and not be part of the,
Nope, you're switching back to the other
Well, I know,
strand.
yeah, I just wanna understand.
So Principles of Engineering is year 2
oh, all right, I meant
of the
year one.
engineering
I meant
strand.
year one.
Right.
Okay.
So the Introduction to Computer Science,
Right.
which Maggie would be teaching next year,
Yeah.
has no prerequisites.
I'm talking about the class that's going on today.
The class that's going on today had no prerequisites.
So I could take that and not be part of Project Lead the Way.
Yep, and never take another
Okay.
course in the
I
strand.
didn't know that.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Cora, I missed the thread. I got interested in what you were saying, and if I could back up the way. You indicated the credits are being issued by RIT?
Correct.
So if you go to another engineering school or another college, you have to go through the typical process of transferring courses from,
That's correct.
with the restrictions that individual colleges can put on it. I have children involved in that, and I found that 3 schools, and each one had different requirements.
Yeah, they do.
Villanova accepted the courses, but then required that you add additional courses to your in-school to get your graduation.
Yeah.
Lehigh said, yeah, we'll give you credit for the first one, but the second one, we have a modified curriculum, so we'll give you 3 credits for the first one, but you're going to have to take this other course to get the credits.
Yeah.
And one school didn't want to know about it at all, but that was Boston College, and the Jesuits never listened to anybody anyway. But, yeah, so and the parents, I hope I'm being made aware of that, because it can get very costly if you count on it and then find out you
Right.
can't get it.
Right, yep, good point.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Cora.
Okay, well, I'm just going to stay here,
Yeah.
because
this
we
one-
also have the course,
Oh, yes,
or
you
the
are.
textbook adoption.
And this one is really just a result of the AP forcing us to get the latest
Correct.
edition. So we
Yep.
probably don't need to go into too much
No,
detail.
we had to, we were audited by AP. This is the AP American Studies course. We cannot call it an AP course without their blessing. And, we can think about conspiracy theories between textbook producers, publishers, and the AP board. But the point is, we cannot call this AP and give students credit without purchasing the new edition of the textbook. That's the long and short of it.
Another reason for electronic books.
So just out of curiosity, the textbook we're talking about here is the Western Heritage since 1300, 11th edition.
Yes, it is.
So did they give us any insight in precisely what new has happened that is included in this
The new
new edition
history?
that requires a new volume?
Yeah, no. They simply said that our application for AP was insufficient because we had not demonstrated purchase of the new text.
Yeah, there's a 10-year rule that was
Right.
in the,
Right.
if they're 10 years or older.
Because
But
the history since 1300
electronic
has
books
changed.
would be much easier to...
Yeah, and there is an electronic piece that comes with the new
saw
edition, which
that.
is helpful.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, all set?
So good.
Thank you all.
Because that extra 5 years
Wow.
over the last 800 matters.
Okay. At this time, may I have a motion to enter public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I would like to say thank you for your patience. I know it's late for the first public participation, but all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We're now in public participation. Would anybody like to address the board?
It's pretty obvious from the superintendent.
Good evening. My name's Bobby Goodman.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year. My first meeting this year.
You're slacking. Sorry.
I did have a question about the computer science class. I know last year my son took the class with Maggie Schimmelfig and was able to take the AP exam and was able to use that AP credit towards a credit for college. So will the AP exam still be there, or will it be a Project Lead the Way test? Or is it still the same, or will we switch to a different test?
Good question.
So that's my question for that. My
you have
other thing
another
is,
one?
I'm sorry?
You have more than one question?
No, I just have kind of a statement.
Oh, okay.
Not really too bad, but, a little history lesson. Going back about the concession discussion. I do not support the stipend position that is discussed for running the concession stand. Many of you were here years ago when I was a middle school parent and an elementary parent, and we came forth with the proposal for the facility in the first place, and it was shot down by 68 votes. And the community spoke, and, we went out and we pounded the pavement, and we talked again, and we broke it in from one prop to two props, and we explained how much it was going to cost, and that we really weren't going to be asking for much more money, and it passed, and it was great. And then the first year we were open, we asked for a part-time facilities and operations guy. Howie's there, opens the field, does all the gates. Great. I really think it's not the time, when we're cutting budgets again for this year, to take money away from our students and at the desk to pay a stipend to run something that community people can do for free. And that's it. Thank you.
Just going to ask if anybody else. Oh, thank you.
Denise Berry. Hi, everybody. I'm just also here for the same reason. I do not support a stipend for the concession stand manager or whatever it's going to be called. The concession stand should be a shell. It should be a shelter. I mean, it opens, it closes, it shouldn't be a kitchen. It should be something that we can maintain with what we have. And when I sat here and I just listened to Mr. Adder's, technology plan, and we're bringing on new classes and all of these things, and we're trying to cut costs, why would we create a new position for something that we already have the ability to take care of as it is? We don't need somebody to manage it. We don't need somebody to manage food and inventory food. We don't need those things. The volunteers are doing it. The staff that's there is already doing it. It's a shell. It's a shelter. It shouldn't be a kitchen. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Nicole Gavelitz. I am a North Park parent, and I wanted to thank Tracy Farrell and the rest of our PTA for providing that. I also wanted to thank Lisa Hecht for her presentation. I am a member of the PTA Council, a board member at the local library, I work in local government, and my husband is an owner of a local business. And I feel that encouragement is important. My children are in 3rd and 5th grade, as I said. They've benefited tremendously from their education here at North Park. And Dr. Rychek, when you spoke about the faculty meetings, and you felt that way coming out of the faculty, I feel that about my children's education, and I wanted to make that known while you guys are all here. My kids have done summer STEM. They're fueled up to play 60 ambassadors. I'm on the BLT. My kids are doing, my oldest is doing district orchestra, which, by the way, the new orchestra guy here is great. My daughter loves him, and we liked who was here last year. But I feel that encouragement is tremendously important. When there is a problem, it needs to be dealt with. Nothing is perfect. But like I said, my kids have really benefited from this education at North Park, and I want to make sure you guys knew that.
Thanks so much. And thanks for all your participation. Oh, am I supposed to respond yet? We didn't close participation.
Aha.
That was my additional comment that I forgot. Thank you, Dr. Rychek. I really feel that when you get involved, it shows to my children as well as myself. They are now almost as involved as I am, and they feel it, and they love it, and they own it. You own it. So that was my additional comment.
Thank you.
Future board.
Always good to end. Does anybody else want to address the board? What a high note to end the hearing. May I have a motion to end public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Anybody want to respond first?
Oh, just Nicole, this is our first year of having student member on the Board of Education, so if you groom them right, you might be sitting here watching your children on the board.
Yeah. And I'd just like to point out that we could use a female on the Board of Education if you're so inclined to run. All right. I got to keep trying. I promised my wife.
I can respond to the question about the computer science course as well.
Okay.
So the introductory course that we're looking at next year, as I mentioned, is designed for students without any programming background at all. So the second course, Computer Science and Software Engineering, is aligned with AP. So students would still be able to earn AP credit. And that course can also, I failed to say, when we get to it, it could also serve as the third course in the engineering strand. So as we build computer science, there's opportunity for students to move between the two. But yes, in year 2, students would still have the AP credit.
And I think to Bobby's point, too, only because he's at Clarkson, right? Yeah. So I think one of the things, too, that we could also answer is, of the engineering schools, what engineering schools are accepting the Project Lead the Way credits, because unlike some of the other programs where the students get a community college credit, Project Lead the Way is nationally recognized, so there's a much higher percentage of the schools that accept it. So I know they have that available, but we could look into that. But knowing that Clarkson is one of the top engineering schools, it's interesting to see if they're taking both Project Lead the Way and AP credit. But we know they're taking the AP, so.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to deal with the stipend, or?
Not at this time. I'll include that unless one of the board members wants to take on the stipend. I could include that in my concession stand report.
well, I think it's worth discussing. It's been brought up that there is an opinion that the stipend is unnecessary, and I think, given that, if nothing else, we should explain why we're doing it the way we are, and have an opportunity for people to, respond to that. And perhaps that was what your meeting was supposed to do, wasn't it?
Well, the meeting was strictly not for the management of that
Okay.
physical plant. The meeting was about the proceeds of the concession stand. In the discussions that led to the discussion of a concession stand manager, it's really about protecting our investment, and the board's desire to look into the health code to make it compliant with the Board of Health, which is a whole different can of worms. The other thing is that in our discussions, that multiple people having access means multiple keys, multiple this, multiple that, and we really feel that in order to protect this investment that was community donations, we want one single point of access to have people utilize to gain entry to and from the concession stand, somebody who would take ownership, be able to manage, knowing who was in there, who was leaving it in what condition. So it really was our response to protecting our investment. So for a small stipend, we could have somebody who would oversee and manage it to make sure that there's no damage, to make sure that it's properly locked up, and that we don't have multiple keys. If we start to use the venue for multiple events, which we certainly hope the athletic stadium is used more often, the more people who have their hands in the pot of being responsible for opening and locking and fixing and reporting damage, a single point person to manage that was what we were looking for.
Okay, I think that that helped. I think we should always be prepared to say why we did something. And,
Yeah. I think
it is a small stipend compared to other things that we do. So,
I also think that I mean, I know it's nice to think of it as a shell, but it's more than a shell now. It's an expensive structure with lighting, sound, eventually, full kitchen facility. So it's not a shell. It's the same way that if you wouldn't want a whole bunch of people to have access to any of our buildings. It's another management piece of what we need to do to take care of our investment.
When did we decide it was going to be a full kitchen? Because this is a storage shed.
Right, we haven't decided that. I said eventually, sorry, Jeff, eventually. We still have to go through the Board of Health question, which I believe Elliot's investigating as we move forward. But yeah, no, right now, we don't have any Board of Health approval. But it is wired for running water, electricity.
Okay.
To expand that, right? The drainage area?
I think that was for the soccer field.
right, the drainage for the soccer field. That's for the soccer
Wasn't the
field.
one that carried away the water and stuff from the concession stand and drain it? I misunderstood that.
Okay, I thought it was the soccer field.
The one that's on
Yeah.
the end is the soccer field. Today.
Not the one that,
Not the one you're talking about
not the
here.
water, no.
Okay.
At a previous board meeting, I thought we accepted a donation for somebody to run a line from the concession stand out and take care of,
Oh, I don't recall it. We'll have to look that, we should look that up. Okay. I guess we can move on here. before we do, I guess what I wanted to get out of this was to point out that this wasn't a decision that was taken lightly nor without some thought behind it. And you may not agree with what the thought was, and we're glad that you voiced your opinion. We do want to hear it. And in some cases, it'll change our mind. In some cases, maybe not. But thank you for your input. Okay. So we are at, we close this or district leader update? DLT
That
update,
would be
right?
Jeff Daniels.
So the district leadership team met yesterday from 8 o'clock till almost 3:30. Where that was completing phase 3 and 4. And you're going to start to hear 4 buzzwords that are coming. And it's critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. And if you would have listened to Cora's when she started talking about her engineering, you would have found all 4 of those in there. But in all of it, that's where we're looking at doing. And we were at a gathering point, so we had lots of people gathering information. We didn't have any of the parents there yesterday. So we are rescheduling a meeting for the parents to have their input into what was discussed. But we assess the district at multiple levels, from our budget to our goals to how we assess, and we didn't score ourselves very high.
Right.
From a total of 4, we scored mostly in 2s and 1s. So the next meeting will be just staff members, so that would be the administrators and teachers, and they're going to be going through with all the data that we collected, and they're going to start prioritizing the goals, and then it'll be sent back to the whole DLT again. So stay tuned, and we hope that we'll have a constructive 3 to 5 year plan by in March, April.
Yeah,
I hope.
yeah.
That's good. All right. That brings us to the consent agenda. May I have a motion for 9.1, the consent agenda, please, as listed in the board agenda?
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Yes.
Gary?
Glad to see Elliot's still here. Got a couple concerns and comments, and maybe Elliot could answer some of them for me. It's about the bid for the floor in this building, actually. The rebid for the refinishing and resealing, repainting of the floor. I've got a couple of thoughts here. Why did this come out so late, the RFP, so close to the time you want to do the work? Since we knew about this quite a while back, didn't we? And the reason I say that is we're only 2 weeks away from the time that we're going to do the work.
Yep, we've been working on this.
And we're only at this board meeting to approve that work.
That's correct. We were working on this since the summer. We had a quote last year when we were doing the emergency repairs to address this issue. And we typically use that as kind of a benchmark to figure out our budget and go from there. Since then, the project evolved a little bit, became a little bit more costly, but we were having difficulty getting comparable quotes to get the project off the ground. So we didn't intend to put it out to bid right away because we had enough interested vendors where we could get enough quotes to not have to go through that process. Unfortunately, 2 of our vendors backed out, which brought us underneath the required amount of quotes to have to do the project, or to be able to award based on what we had. So we had to go out on BidNet and publicly bid it.
Yeah, but still, you had a time span there where you could have put it out earlier for proposals, and if it didn't work, you could have had this RFP out, say September, October. Would have been a little more comfortable with that.
Okay.
And that might have changed the price a little bit, might have had some more vendors interested. We've been through this before. We're not getting many vendors responding to our bids. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if you do either, but
I don't. It's been a bit of a challenge getting people
sure
to,
it is, yeah.
you know, and again, week to week, you put out phone calls, I have 6 vendors, yeah, I'll give you a quote, and you wait a week, and you
Right,
wait a
and
week.
these are specialty vendors, I understand that point, too. You're
I have
not going after
vendors.
GCs or
Yeah,
something.
I brought in vendors from New Jersey, Long Island, all the way up to the Capital Region to bid this project out, and I struggled to get 3 bidders.
Now, and my main concern is, have we resolved the problem of the floor movement?
I haven't had any reports of heavage since the repairs were done.
I know you haven't, but we've had that problem came up after a long period of time.
Right.
Last year, I think, right? Was it last year?
Right, as you may recall, we did some preventative work in addition to
Right.
the repair work. We took out about 2 inches from the perimeter to allow the floor to shift and swell without heaving. At the time of the emergency repair, that floor was butted up against all 4 of the exterior walls and had nowhere to go but up. So that all the L brackets along the perimeter were removed.
Well, the
floor was cut to allow it to swell.
It's your confidence we're counting on, because of investing this kind of money in the floor moves next winter. Because we haven't had any really weather patterns or environment that might have keyed in this floor movement.
Well, we've gone through a full calendar year, and that was part of the intent, was to experience all 4 seasons, including the humidity swells of the late summer, early fall. And we got through that without issue. I didn't want to jump the gun on the scheduling, so I really didn't start pushing this until September because I was monitoring the condition. And then once I started to do so, it took about a month and a half to figure out that we had to put it out to bid. So we really didn't have all that much time.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you.
What do you want me to do?
Any other concerns? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to special ed somewhere. Let me get down there. Have a motion for 10.1, special education placements, please.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Dan?
I've reviewed the package and recommend its adoption as presented.
All right. Any other? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. May I have a motion for the Ralph R. Smith Elementary Local Assistance Plan?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? It's required.
Yep.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion for 10.3, the consultant agreement, the Hyde Park police office. These are SROs in the middle school and the high school. Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on that one? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
And before you go to 10.4, I do have a conversation coming up with Aileen Rohr and the town of Hyde Park, as well as the police chief. So this consultant agreement may be something that we revisit again in the near future, just a heads up.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead with this, but it might come back.
Yes.
Okay.
We were hoping to have the conversation before this agenda, but knowing that the basketball games are here and now, we want to move ahead with this, but I may have to bring it back.
Okay. On to 10.4. I have a motion for the SECRA Type 2 action as listed in the agenda.
Second.
For the public, this is about a donation of a well for non-potable water at the Creek soccer fields. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to the Hyde Park Soccer Club for making this rather substantial donation. It's well over
Yeah.
$12,000 to put
Yeah.
the well in.
I was going to do that on 10.5. That's the next one.
Leading up to it.
Oh, okay.
Just in case anybody was thinking about, no, you know.
Oh, okay.
Get a plug in.
Sold,
All right.
Dan, sold.
Can I have a motion for 10.5, the donation of the
So moved.
irrigation well?
Second?
Any discussion? You want to add again?
So thank you again.
What do you think, Dan?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
yes. It is a significant amount for a club to donate, so
Very deep.
thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. May I have a motion for 10.6, the rescheduling of the May board meeting? Yeah, yeah.
Second.
Say again what it is?
No.
Oh, the motion, yeah, and seconded. Oh, okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Hey,
Late.
I'm easy.
Late.
I have a motion for 10.7, volunteer coaches, as listed in the agenda.
So moved.
Have a second? Anybody got a second? No?
Second.
Oh, okay. Getting tough here. Any discussion? All in favor? You guys are killing me.
Again, thank you to the people that have volunteered.
Yeah?
Doug, could you move a little closer to your mic? I'm having trouble hearing you.
That was by design. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure, I can do that.
Maybe it was, but it's still getting in the way.
I know I should speak louder. I just don't normally speak loud, so. May I have a motion for 10.8, textbook
So moved.
adoption?
Second.
That's the one we talked about earlier. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Thank you.
Sure.
Because a
And
lot
that
has
brings us back
changed.
to public participation. May I have a motion to enter public participation, please?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We're back in. Ladies, you want a second go? There you go. I knew I could count on you.
Thank you. With the AP class, I know that I am Bobby Goodman, returning to the mic again.
She's still Bobby Goodman.
I am the original Bobby, you're the second Bobby. With the AP class, I know when David took it, it was a one-year course, so he didn't have to take two. So I think that was what my question was, like, do they have to take 2 years in order to get that credit? Whereas before, Maggie just taught a one-year course, and they could take the AP. So that was all. As far as the concessions, I get it, but you guys have had a discussion. No community outreach has been talked about. So I propose that there be, not necessarily a community forum, but more of a open discussion about where we want to go with this, because it was community donations that created this building, and we still have more to do. We still need the storage, the bathrooms, and all the other stuff that we said we were going to raise money for. So let's not try to piss off everybody before we're done, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And I know that you did reach out, and I know that SGO 2 classes could not make it to that meeting, but I do believe that Ms. Turk was speaking for everyone, and they really do not want to wish, not just for the upcoming junior class to change, but for it to be looked at overall for the entire SGO that is there, to not lose that revenue from the football games, because there are other opportunities. No one does concessions at any of the home track events. We didn't have them before. The first year we were there, the sophomore class did. Maybe take on something that doesn't already exist and that isn't already working. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? May I have a motion to exit public participation, please?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, thank you, Bobby. I think it has merit. I would only say, and I hope I say this right without getting myself in trouble, a donation is a donation to the district, and the district really has an obligation to do due diligence and take care of that donation in a way that the district thinks is appropriate. That being said, I think a meeting would be a good thing.
Well, I'd be unclear as to what we could certainly reach out to some people. The other thing to clarify is that the district will expend funds to oversee and manage that concession stand. The district is expending funds in that we have employees who are managing and looking after the concession stand. I guess the shift is that it is important enough and specific enough and not an add-on to someone else's existing position already. So it's a little misleading to think in terms that it's being done for free. It's not. It's being done by paid employees who are already overextended. And by virtue of providing a stipend, it's to say that the work right now is great enough and large enough a task that instead of slapping it onto someone else's existing job title, we would like to separate it out and instead of hiring a part-time person, one of the mechanisms we have in our budget to take care of some management pieces is to provide a stipend. So, for example, when the mandate came down that we had to provide mentoring for all teachers and administrators, there wasn't anyone who had enough room in their schedule to take on a district-wide mentoring program, and that was put as a stipended position. So I just don't want to leave us with the fact that volunteers are taking care of that property. Volunteers are not taking care of the property. It is district employees who are managing it. It's multiple people. It's not clearly defined. It's a little bit of a stress point because, who's going to be there to hand out the key to do what? So it is going to be an expense to the district, and it's a matter of, do we think it has risen to the level that we would like somebody who's dedicated to that with a clearly defined job description for a minimal amount of money? And I think that's an important distinction to make, is that it is our employees that are taking care of it right now.
Okay. That brings us to, are there any other matters deemed necessary by the board? Any? Okay. We'll move on to board subcommittee reports. We did have a policy meeting where we discussed a number of items. The DLT met, which you've already heard. Was there any other subcommittee meeting?
The technology subcommittee met since the last meeting and made very good progress, I think.
Right.
We made a list of possible places where we could spend the money that Forrest mentioned earlier. So it was a very productive discussion.
That's probably because I didn't get there until you were ready to end. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying that you being there made the meeting go better,
just
but...
Curious, just curious.
That was more my absence.
Okay, upcoming meetings. Oh, is there anybody else meet? Oh, okay. Upcoming meetings. We have Wednesday, January 13th, 8:30 to 4 p.m. is the next DLT meeting. It's at the district office.
But that is just for teachers and staff?
Just for the teachers and staff, which isn't there, but okay. And we have a, next board meeting is January 14th, 7 p.m. at FDR High School. And that's it for that. We have no need for another executive session.
Doug?
We do?
I'd like to request 10 or 15 minutes to complete the conversation about that legal matter that we were discussing before we came out.
Okay. May I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss a legal matter before the board?
So moved. Second.
All, and any discussion? All in favor? Okay. We will be back shortly, hopefully. You can vote on the way. Can I have a motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, including Dan? Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on that one? All in favor? Opposed?